public and doing like a lot of events and like activism and shit like that. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
As far as like a certain like divide or not like.
So the theme is divide.
It's about dissolving divides
and unifying
between people and unifying.
Got it.
Finding the way to sort of find the synthesis
like the red versus blue, male versus female, all that stuff. Like we're trying to bridge all the gaps.
Okay,
so, as far as like any divides you've seen between people, like we're all people in the end.
I can send you a few things, dude, because if that's the theme, which is I think is a beautiful theme.
Well, you just keep it in mind, and we'll bring it up.
Unify your principles.
Yeah.
You know, dissolving it, finding our common ground, something like this. Absolutely, that's where it's going.
It could be any. I mean, we could stick to a topic or not. It could be the general. I guess I'm pretty open. Are you on that? I mean, you have certain areas of your expertise, so wherever you wanna.
Yeah.
Bonjour. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is Dissolving the Divide, episode 14, I believe. And we keep on trucking along. And I was recently trucking up the I-5 and able to give David a high five out in Reading, actually, and meeting someone with a really high energy, spirit, and coming up with really solution-based approaches towards, we all know what's going on with, a lot of the messed up things and these insidious systems that have created so many divisions between people and between, groups of people or, what societies and countries, blah, blah, blah. And not to... But Leslie is, a great friend that I was able to hang out with a little bit this week as well with Chris. And it was just so great to connect and like try to just, get to some grassroots things and brainstorm a lot. And just a really honored and thankful, grateful to be in coordination with the likes of you and introducing me to David. So, yeah,
it's great to develop this networking and connections. I think that's one of the answers really is our in-person meetings and connections, right? I really happy that you're here, David. Really welcome your knowledge, your expertise, your energy. I think it's wonderful to have you on our program. I'll read a little bit about from your bio. David James Rodriguez helps parents remove their children from government schools. As the principal of Valor Academy, he provides early high school education or early high school graduation and diplomas for teenagers, as well as homeschool coaching for parents. He's the publisher of The Underground History of American Education by world-famous teacher John Taylor Gatto. He's the host of Education Options TV and the Freedom Lovers Show, where he explores solutions for building a voluntary world, one relationship at a time. So I would love it if you could start us off by, sharing a little bit about your own journey to voluntarism, how that's different from statism, and what your vision is here.
Yes. Well, Leslie, great to be with you, Derek, as well. And I'm really honored to be around people who believe in voluntary consensual relationships, which most people do, but there's this little virus inside most of us or many people that allows people to use coercion against other people. And, they call it taxation, but it's actually extortion. They call it war, but it's actually mass murder. So I came across voluntarism when I saw Ron Paul get his election stolen in 2012. And I was raised in a small town. I'm actually born and raised in Mount Shasta, California, about 3,000 people in that town. And I was in this bubble of picturesque beauty and kindness. Even the government school I went to, people were nice and the teachers were known by the community. And, there's only one school, one elementary school, one middle school or high school. So I left Mount Shasta, went down to the Bay Area, got a business degree, got into business. I sold a business when I was age 26. And then that's when I was learning a little bit about Ron Paul with his first election in 2008. And then I moved to Korea. I taught English in Korea at a private high school and at a college for a while. And then I moved to New York, and just kind of following the spiritual path, and ultimately I couldn't really put all my heart and soul into organized religion. I found too many holes and questions for myself. I still believe in God and Creator. I love some of Jesus' words and some of the good things out there. But I started to realize that I've been under serious mind control since birth. And so my parents and my grandparents, and some of you guys know out there about the Federal Reserve System. And I was just like, what is going on? So anyways, I came across a group. Well, I guess it was Murray Rothbard. He has a book called For a New Liberty, which states how a voluntary world would work. And of course, that was interesting to me. I was seeing what happened to Ron Paul. I said, I don't think politics is how you change the world. So how do you change the world is you raise consciousness and raise frequency and vibration and bring solutions. And so I came across voluntarism. And voluntarism is the belief and practice of voluntary relationships with peaceful people. And this might seem very basic to some of us, but like as I said before, the government compulsory school system, the war machine, the financial system, the medical system, what we've seen in the last 3 years, it's all based on coercion. And so my question to people as I'm talking with them, they talk about the problem. I'm like, I got it. I went all the way down the rabbit hole. I got it. Do you got any solutions, or are we just going to complain all day? I still got, hopefully, 50 years of my life left. I want to live a good life. I want to live a peaceful, happy life. And what are we going to do? Vote for a new guy in? Is that how we do this? No. The solution seems to be we got to build the world that we want. And that's a more difficult challenge because of all the conditioning and beliefs and the things inside of our subconscious mind, including myself. I'm not totally out of the woods yet, right? I'm always a work in progress. But to realize that I am the one I've been waiting for. And if you're listening to this podcast and show, you're the one you've been waiting for. And it's this big, spiritual revelation, like, oh my gosh, like I'm the one, you're the one. And just kind of, reaffirming that and say, wow, this is interesting. Life is interesting. It's amazing to be a human being. So voluntarism is that practice and belief that transcends the left-right paradigm. And I'm so grateful you guys named this Dissolving the Divide, because we see what's happening. They're trying to put people, race against people, ethnicity, politics, genders, my gosh, financial, economic status. Like, how many different ways are they trying to do this? Because they know if we all get united around one principle, which I call the freedom of choice principle, which all moral people can get along with, they're in trouble. These predators are in deep, deep trouble because of what they've been doing to humanity for many, many years. So that's the idea behind voluntarism. And I just got, I guess, kind of disgusted, and I got exposed to what's happening in politics. And I was looking for solutions, and I came across voluntarism, and it just really inspired me. It liberated me to learn about the 3 principles. And actually, I wrote a book for Anarchapulco, and that was a freedom event down in Mexico in 2015 to present. And I co-produced there and spoke there a few times, and I love the people down there. Appreciate everything that they're doing. Anyways, I wrote a book for them called The Anarchist Guide to the Galaxy. And so it kind of goes, it's kind of like a, go ahead. Yeah, so the
yeah, my mic on, but that was you. I've heard about that. That's great, man. Yeah. And I wanted to mention you've been in so many conferences, and the Greater Resets. That's trying to flip the script on Klaus Schwab.
Oh yeah, humanity's rising up, man. It's really exciting. After you go to an events, I started to realize, wow, this is actually a worldwide awakening. And of course, we're in the beginning, but the people are rising up. Derek Bros and John Bush and you guys and Jeff Berwick and Etienne de la Boetie and Larkin Rose and Mark Passio and etc. More and more people. So we're trying to activate people. And I'll put that book. That's an ebook. I'll put it in the link. I'll give you guys the link so your audience can download it for free. But it just goes through the 3 principles. And here's the 3 principles: self-ownership, non-aggression, and self-defense. And so these 3 principles, I kind of deduced from all the, intellectual stuff. Rothbard's really good. Lysander Spooner's really good. Ludwig von Mises is really good. But I'm I'm not like PhD level, you know, I'm just like basic dude. I just want to understand it, and I want to be able to share with other people. And so the first thing is self-ownership. And I was like, when the whole lockdown happened, that's how we started our meetings. We were doing meetings down in Santa Cruz, and statism confuses people where they actually don't know that this is their body. 100%. Whoever's listening, this is your flesh and blood. And if you believe in God, you can give it to God, but it's definitely not the government's, and it's definitely not anybody else's. So that was like aha moment. That was a eureka moment. And I'm like, this is a truth that I can actually sink my teeth into. I can plant my feet on this one. And I think that's why I get so excited about it, because from a young age, maybe like some of you, I was thinking and asking questions and like, you know, how does the world work? What's going on around here? And I thought that the adults knew what was going on. They don't. Nobody knows what's going on, right? Everybody's just kind of, you know, getting along, making some money, having some family and kids, and that's fine. But as we see what's going on with Agenda 21, 2030, you know, Healthy People 2045, all these things, these predators, and we know their names now, for a long time, the Bilderberg Trilateral Council on Foreign Relations, that's Skull and Bones, Bush's, Clintons, you know, all these people, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, we know who they are now. So great. Now what? Now what are we going to do? Are we just going to, you know, post the conspiratainment? That I got that word from bros, conspiratainment, right? And
Good
I'm
word.
And
you
there's
know,
fear porn because people are addicted, like, you know, too much. But yes,
that's right. Yeah,
too much.
myself
Yeah.
included. I was like, yeah, man, like, what the heck are we doing? So I
Right.
got to take a look in the mirror, and that's when I started to get serious. I went to Acapulco 6 years in a row, and this is how I know it's a worldwide awakening. I saw it go from 120 people, and then double basically each year till it was at its height at 1,700 people. And the first year, I got a funny story, and then I'll give it back to you. I went by myself because I learned from some of my business success coaches. He said, you want to go to live events, just like all of us got together the other day, get together, high five, hug. You know, we just kind of hung out for a second there. But, you know, you get to feel each other's humanity. So I went to this event by myself, happy to do it. And the day before the event starts, I'm like, wow, I'm in Acapulco, Mexico, my first time. This is beautiful on the beach. So gorgeous down there. I'm sitting at the pool, and some young tall guy comes up and says, hey, are you here for Acapulco? I'm like, yeah. He says, oh, there's some of us sitting over here on the beach. If you want to come join us, it's right around the corner. I'm like, okay, great, let's go. So I went down there, and there was about 7 or 8 of us, and all single young men. And I'm sitting around, and we just kind of sat in a circle and just introducing ourselves. All of us came by ourselves, and all of us were from 7 different countries. And this guy's from Germany, Portugal, Sweden, Norway. I'm just like, holy smokes. You guys all came. Oh, man. So that was the first like defining moment. I realized, oh, these governments, it's not just the U.S. government. It is the idea of statism. It is the idea that the government has authority over you. And it's like, wow. So even from that first year, the phrase we kept hearing, and I keep saying it because now it's really starting to rise, is the Buckminster Fuller quote. He said, you never change reality by fighting against it. You got to create a new model that makes the old model obsolete. And that's what kind of helped me with my educational work. As you mentioned, I'm principal of Valor Academy. So I don't think the school system can be reformed. I think the only solution for empowering your children is to remove them, if possible, immediately. And I do early high school graduations. I do homeschool consulting and apprenticeship consulting, because the world, these devices have changed the entire world in a way that I'm still processing. So it's just a beautiful time to be alive, and it's a great honor to be with you guys here talking about unification and solutions. And I think, you know, these kind of conversations will continue, and more people are going to find these solutions in voluntarism and not fighting the system, but then making it obsolete.
Great, David. That's a wonderful synopsis. I wanted to just highlight the point that when you were talking, I realized that the real difference is that voluntarism versus coercion, right?
Yes.
And that I think that generations of kind of being beat down in the system, and seeing that our government is just like, we take it for granted, is just what is, it's just there and that's what it is. And people don't really even question it. A lot of the times we've been conditioned to accept coercion as acceptable and normal. Right.
Yes.
And I think what you're highlighting here, and what we're seeing in the world, more and more people realizing that coercion is getting worse, I think. And also that's highlighting the existence of it all along, right? All along. It's just now it's becoming so obvious to most of us, and we're feeling it as something that's really a violation of our rights. And I love the 3 principles that you mentioned, and the self-ownership and personal responsibility, the non-aggression. We don't want to do harm to people. And yet we have the right to self-defense against people who are doing harm to us.
Yeah.
And so on some level, I think what you're saying really clearly is that the government and the status kind of world is doing some harm against us, and to children. And how would you define, how would you describe what is the harm to children by staying in public education?
The number one harm is it changes their identity. They don't know who they are, and that is, you are born free. I believe we're all sons and daughters of the Creator, and if somebody likes evolution, that's fine. Nature, humanity, our ancestors, but it's very significant to be a human, and the identity is we're the son or daughter of our parents, and we were created in love, and we are the embodiment of love. And we lose that in age 5 or 6, so it distorts their identity. And then the system teaches them that they're not important, because important people get to go to the bathroom when they want. Important people get to read what they want. Important people get to develop themselves. But from age 6, you ask permission. Can I go to the bathroom? They're forced this curriculum onto you. Do this assignment or you're going to fail in life. That's basically terrorizing the children. And I have a business degree. Nobody's ever asked to see my business degree. Got a high school diploma. Nobody's ever asked to see these things. Associate's degrees, all these things. They don't care. And that's what we learned through John Taylor Gatto, who taught in public schools for 30 years. He got the New York City Teacher of the Year award 3 times and the New York State Teacher twice. And he concluded many of these things. I highly recommend people take a look at him. He really inspired me, and I got to be in business with him because he was the guy who was speaking truth about these schools. And so now what's happening is they're teaching your son that he can maim, mutilate his lingam and become a girl. He's teaching your girl she can maim and mutilate her yoni and become a boy. This is serious. And then if you've seen the documentary titled What is a Woman, you'll see it's not just at the elementary high school level, it's at the collegiate level. And you have, I think, well-meaning people in these systems, but he's literally sitting across from a woman, and he asks her, the whole theme of the movie is, what is a woman, right? So he's asking all these highly schooled people, what's a woman? And she says, I don't know. I'm not one. So you have a woman sitting there with breasts and a yoni, God bless her, and she says she's not a woman. So what they're doing is they're distorting truth, and ultimately they're distorting justice, because the purpose of a court, the purpose of justice is to find out the truth. But if you're teaching an 8-year-old boy that he can have penis and testicles and be a girl, that's basically denying his self-evident truth that
Reality.
he is a boy. It's reality. So those are some of the things: the identity, the habit training, the body mutilation, and then so sad that many of these people who transition to some other gender, I think it takes about 7 to 10 years, and then they have the highest rate of suicide than any other class in the world, because they realize that they've been duped, they've been lied to, and the people who were supposed to protect them, mom and dad, let them chop up their reproductive organs, and many of these people can't even reproduce. So we're dealing with super diabolical and unacceptable procedures happening in these schools in your neighborhood today. In Mount Shasta, last year, a of course, the whole election and school boards, all these things. I watched it with my own eyes. It was actually the former principal of my high school. He's now like on the school board. And here's what they're doing. They're putting tampons in boys' bathrooms.
Oh.
And this is in a small little, small town situation. So imagine what's going on in these urban schools that have 2,000, 3,000 students. We're dealing with psychiatric wards. They're creating mental cases. And of course, now they have a solution. They're going to give you pharmaceutical drugs, and you got Pfizer in there, and you see how this all works for the financial benefit. That's how they incentivize these people. But then the higher level strategy is they want to demoralize, dehumanize, and basically turn the children into raving statists, globalists, or totalitarian type people that will rat on their parents. And so the time is coming, just like they did in Soviet Russia, where they're going to ask the child, are your parents saying they distrust the government? Are your parents not letting you transition or get the new vaccine or whatever thing is? And then here you have the 8-year-old, a good, well-meaning 8-year-old. Oh yeah, mommy said this and daddy said this. And now you have the teachers. Okay, very interesting. Okay, and now they got to go report it. So the schools are the center of the status programming in society, because if you try to tell a 18-year-old that he can have male private parts and be a girl, he's going to tell you to go take a hike. You're insane. You tell an 8-year-old that, and he'll be like, I knew it, because we do have the male and the masculine and the feminine inside of us. We do have that. So it's appealing to that. And the kid's like, okay, and 8 years old, that's like second grade. So think about where you were in the second grade. And I was just like, oh my gosh, all these adults around me, all these strangers. And, it's a terrifying experience to be in these environments. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, why I get so passionate, because the
Yeah.
solution is you remove them and then teach them about voluntarism, teach them about personal responsibility. And then that way we can move forward as a human family and a society.
Yeah, for sure. I think this particular topic is very scary, and it's heating up in such a way that I think parents should be alarmed. And it makes it very clear to me, like, if those things are happening in schools, that the schools are taking on an agenda that's beyond education of children, for success in, a real liberal arts education to empower them to be good thinkers. I think at some point, the agenda for kids was not really around making them good thinkers or good learners, but to become something for the state, right?
Yep.
Like to
Yep.
be, and what is a little piece of the history, that influenced that?
Yep. Beautiful question. So this is what John Gatto spent his entire life studying, because he was a business guy who, through a roundabout way, became a substitute teacher and just experienced immediately all the coercion, all the disrespect. And he's like, what's going on in here? So he decided to become a teacher and start studying the system. And so that's what the book that I republished for him, called The Underground History of American Education. Very powerful. And if you go online, you can watch a 5-hour interview where it's so interesting, called The Ultimate History Lesson. Shout out to Richard Grove and his team for putting that on. But the essence is that the American school system was imported from Prussia, which is current day Germany, in 1852. So it got imported by a guy named Horace Mann. And then over the next 70 years, every state adopted the compulsory attendance policies. And what Gatto concluded, and even Horace Mann said it, and I can actually read one of the quotes here, if you give me a sec, but the purpose was to create obedient soldiers, consumers, and clerks, because you need soldiers to go shoot strangers, you need clerks to obey the factory corporation managers, and you need consumers to buy McDonald's and a high fructose corn syrup and all the, terrible food that's on the planet today, right? It's just like crazy. And here's the quote that kind of blew me out of the water. This is from 1806. Johann Fichte, last name Fichte, he said, quote, education should aim at destroying free will, so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. When the technique has been perfected, every government that has been in charge of education for more than one generation will be able to control its subjects securely without the needs of armies or policemen. End quote. And that's from the address, the eighth address to the German nations. So that's now over 200 years ago. And that's what's happening. So now we don't need armies or policemen. We have the Karens and the Darrens out there, God bless them, that, you don't have a mask on, they're going to come, on you. And that's going to happen continually until we realize, like they're under some hypnosis. And the question is, who owns your body? And when we were down in Santa Cruz, we were giving out free hugs. We did it 40 weeks in a row. We did it 1 hour a week. And, spreading love and peace to people, because we realized they're not even interested in the facts. So we're like, we're not even trying to convert you. We just want to send you peace and love. Like, that's the answer. We're sending you peace and love, like the Care Bears, pew, we're sending you, that's what we're doing. And it was very positive, 97% positive. But then some people would come up and they would be frantic, and I can't believe you're giving free hugs out here in a pandemic. And we stay very calm with them. These are people who are in a deep hypnosis. They're in a trance. So I'll be very kind with them as much as I can. I say, sir, can I ask you a question? Yes. Who's responsible for your health? And the government. I said, no, the government's not responsible. I asked another guy, who's responsible for your health? The community. No, I'm not responsible for your health. And one lady, God bless her, came up with a mask like this. Oh, it's very dangerous, what you're doing. I said, ma'am, can I ask you a question? Are you really afraid of a virus? Yes. Okay, maybe you should stay home. You can't come in the public area and act like you're afraid when this is the public. If you're really afraid of a virus, would you come in the public? So we're dealing with irrationality. We're dealing with illogic. And these people need a lot of compassion. And so this is why I start to understand more of kind of the spiritual opportunities and battle and journey that I'm on and that everybody's on, which is, and this is what Martin Luther King said. He said, the only way you turn an enemy into a friend is through love. And you're like, yeah, that's right. Because I'm a pretty, intense and high energy guy. But if I focus on like, you got to do this, or this is what's going on, people are like, oh my gosh. So I stay really calm with people and just send them love, because that's what I need. I don't like when people yell at me. I don't like when people are mean to me. So there's this spiritual battle where the predators, they can't touch us in love. They can only touch us when we're divided, which is, the Democrats and the Republicans and the black and the white and all these things. So this is why I appreciate what you guys are doing here, dissolving that divide, which is, how are we all similar? Because we're all very similar. I believe there's one human family, the human race. There aren't these various races that they have divided upon. And that's because we have the spirit. I am not my body. I was getting deep with Wayne Dyer recently and Joseph Campbell, and they're all very alike in the fact that this is our body, but I am not my body. I'm a spirit. And I actually start to believe that like reincarnation is a thing. Studying children's past lives, that documentary, and some of the people out there.
Seen a bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like I came here for this reason, which is to be free and to help my brothers and sisters be free. It seems like there's some experience that we all came here for, and we're all kings and queens on the earth, and we can do whatever we want as long as we don't harm somebody or their property. And I just got so liberated with that. That's called the non-aggressor principle. That's called do no harm. A 6-year-old can get this. A 4-year-old can get this. And so that's why I also believe in peaceful parenting too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you've gone through, the hero's journey, like, Beth Martin's, shout out to her. And being able to conquer the divide within, if you will, and being able to balance, you're speaking about, things that are said in different ways from, ancient mystery school, tradition, I'm sure you heard of like the pillars of enlightenment and the sacred feminine and masculine, which we've really covered. That was like the foundation of this series to really get the inner sovereignty in those, dissolving those divides from within. And you are such a great example of, someone who's done that, and you're just like emanating that out and like being able to understand like when there's too much yang energy of, like, hey, like you're trying to
Conquer.
manhandle someone into like seeing your point of view instead of like being more like in that neutral zone, or even like more feminine, and attracting that to you and like asking those uh questions that make them think, and those are make them curious. So that's fucking awesome, man. I love that.
Yeah. A
Spreading that
couple of
love too, yeah.
couple
Love
thoughts came
Lucy.
up as you were talking. Is the words that came to mind was indoctrination and mind control, right? Because as Derek said, like there's an intuitive understanding of love that children have. Of there's no divide when kids are interacting with another being. Any idea of like, don't talk to that person because they're blah blah blah, comes from some adult telling them that, right? And indoctrination. And you in the very beginning, you talked about your own mind control, realizing that it had developed in school. And so there's like an agenda that's coming, with the Prussian educational system, this compulsory attendance, the coercion and threat to parents if they don't comply. If their kids don't comply, then there's all this pressure put on parents. And then in society, really this way we've been set up for two parents to have to work to make ends meet, or all these single parents, that then school becomes like a daycare. It becomes, the schools in the day and the after school. Even parents who want to homeschool are seeing an obstacle there financially, and that they feel like they're dependent on the school system so their kids have a place to be, right? And it becomes almost a supervisory place, and a place where the kids' minds are so vulnerable, right, to the agenda. And we're, as many parents, I was early on naive in this way too, of thinking, it takes a village to raise a child. We need other, points of view, and trusting teachers and the system to provide good morals to kids. And somewhere along the way, we've been duped. We've been tricked in this way, right?
Absolutely. So one of the key words is government. The root of government is gubernari mente, which means control of the mind. I was like, that can't be true. And sure enough, and I learned this at the events and talking with the people, and then you go do your own research. Depending on how serious you are about finding the truth and manifesting your purpose and fulfilling your destiny, and finding, what's reality, you got to go do the research. So I found that to be true, control of the mind. And then remember in school where we would pledge allegiance to the flag. And it's like, well, what's that about?
Of the divided States of America? What?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just a pledge allegiance to the republic for which it stands. And so that's like, okay, well, what's the republic? You don't know as an 8-year-old. So you're pledging allegiance to this entity and you don't even know what it is. And as a side note, my mom was a public school teacher for over 10 years. And I have family members that are working in the system. So we're not saying that if you work in the system or if you put your kids in the system, we're not saying that you're bad or wrong or evil. What we're saying is become aware of what's happening in the schools, and then you can decide for yourself. I had one client who took 3 years to pull her child out of the school system. She was coming to my expo. I had an expo called Education Options Expo that I ran from 2014 to 2017. Now it's a YouTube channel, Education Options TV. And I was like, oh my gosh, you still have your child in there, because she's so afraid. And she didn't want to ruin her child's life. And so that's when I realized, oh, parents are so terrified. So that's why I help parents redefine what is an education. What do you desire for your child? So an education, in my definition, is what you do to yourself to create a good life. So that can be reading, actions, thinking. What are you doing to yourself? But a good life. So what's a good life? That's another great philosophical question to spend a lifetime asking ourselves, practicing, what is a good life? And then that's education. And a schooling, which Gatto taught us, they're not even related. They're so far separated. A schooling is what somebody else does to you for their own benefit. So, of course, the state is running the schools, so they're running a status agenda. If McDonald's was running the school system, they'd have a McDonald's agenda. The churches have running the school, they have a church agenda. The military, they have a military agenda. So my invitation to you, mom and dad, is to have a family agenda. What is your agenda for your family? Whether you're single or with a spouse or whatever your situation is, I invite you to think about what is your dream for your family and start to take personal responsibility for that. If you don't lead your son or daughter, the state is going to, or the mega corporations are going to. Hollywood and Disney are going to lead your children down the path which benefits them. And so Gatto even said, try not to think of it as an evil system. He says it is evil, but try not to think of it as an evil system. It's a logical system. And so any organization would go after children because they don't have the critical thinking abilities. And that's, I think, one of the key points is, oh, this is logical. So instead of handing my child off, maybe I can start to create a plan. So some of the support groups that I have that you guys are all invited to, I have one's called Homeschool Leader, and I appreciate putting that logo up there. I got about 3,000 members there where we talk about curriculum, socialization, support some of these questions. And then I also have a group called Homeschool Entrepreneurs, and we're almost at 1,000 members there. And now I'm focusing on the entrepreneur aspect of it because I've been asked about it so much. So now it's about helping you, mom and dad, earn an extra $500 a month, earn an extra $1,000 a month, so that now $1,000 a month, that might get you out of your job and change your life. So that's what we're doing right now, because nobody's coming to save you or me. We are here with God and with each other. If you have a community, you got each other. And otherwise, it's very lonely to feel like, what am I going to do? I'm all by myself. They're trying to isolate you. Remember when they forced us into our houses for months and maybe years now? You can't go outside. You can't go to the church. You can't go to the restaurant. You can only have 10 people at your house, a 10 p.m. curfew. These are all the totalitarian state pushing to see how much they can get. And so we push back, and they're like, okay, but they take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Then lockstep.
This is why, the dissolving divide solution, in my opinion, is voluntary consensual relationships. And here's how we make an agreement. I promise not to force you to do anything. Do you promise not to force me to do anything? Yes? Agree. Great. We're all voluntarists, and now we are on the same page. And so what's really exciting about this, because as a young man in school, I was so bored with school, but my parents forced me to get a 3.0 GPA to play sports. So I love sports, growing up in rural California. That's all I had, I was athlete of the year, my senior year in high school. I played all 3 sports, basketball, baseball, football. So I love sports. So I had to play the game, but I felt the injustice that was in the system. So I started smoking weed around like 8th grade and continued to party, because I was bored. I was self-medicating. And this is all subconsciously that I didn't like my life from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And do you remember, we're almost there now, like May or June, where it's almost summer break. And you're like, oh my gosh, 2 more months, 1 more month, 1 more week, 1 more day, 1 more minute. Yay, freedom, and it's like, that's every day now. We can have that feeling every day, which is freedom. I get to do what I want. I don't need permission from anybody. You're not my master. I'm not your servant or slave. We're all equal. Can we agree on equality for all people? This is where it's going. You can feel the power in these words because it's true. And if you're listening, you also were brutalized by the school system. Doesn't mean that teachers are bad, but it's based on coercion, mandatory assignments. And you called it the indoctrination. That's true. And I think I call it the slave training camp, because statism is slavery in that the state is forcing you to do something against your will under threat of violence. So that's being a slave. Hey, you can't go there or we're going to kidnap you. You have to do this with your child or we're going to fine you or put you in jail. That's the current education code in California.
Take their
So,
kids away. Like we
yep,
have a
yes,
friend who,
CPS. Yep. So all these parents are terrorized. I'm talking with a client right now. He knows about the scamdemic. He knows about the agenda. He knows about all these things. And I'm trying to graduate his 15-year-old, almost 16-year-old daughter, but he's still like, what about this and what about that? I'm like, they are destroying your child's mind. And I can't say it too directly because it's a sensitive subject and he's dealing with fear, just like we used to deal with fear in some of these areas. But fear is how they control us. So once you overcome that and realize whatever steals your peace of mind is not worth it. So you got to really focus on that. If you're feeling super fearful, super bad, you want to go meditate. You want to go pray. You want to go talk with somebody or talk with God or talk with yourself or higher version, whatever you believe, and address that peace is the highest value that you can find, and it's nobody's responsibility but yours for you and mine for me. And that's the definition of success I got from Coach John Wooden, the famous basketball coach, who just amazing man, because we're talking about what is education, what is schooling, what is success. My original dream was to make a lot of money and sit on the beach and be like, yay, I'm sitting on the beach. But then I found out real success is actually giving back to the world, serving humanity. And then John Wooden, he said, success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to become your best. So in short, it's doing your best and knowing, hey, I did my best. There's nothing I can do more than that. And my other mentor, billionaire mentor, Art Williams, says, all you can do is all you can do. And all you can do is enough. So there's these very simple truths by highly successful people that have laid this out, but you're not going to get these in the government schools because they want your child to be a clerk, a consumer, and a soldier. So
yeah, totally. Real quick.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're training people to be cogs in the machine of this enslavement, of course. And I wanted to go back to what you mentioned of just like going back and really living that we all have equal rights, but what the school system seems to be doing, and you can kind of see this through even like the media now and just like the younger generations of they kind of distorted that and not really teaching proper like equal rights and like proper sovereign rights and all that, but what they're doing is like it's misconstruing it with like equal worth almost. And like I played sports like and kind of had a same trajectory as you or same age, so yeah, it's like really cool to listen to that. I only stuck it to soccer, so that was like a year-round sport, but wanted to play basketball and all that shit. But yeah, smoking weed and all that stuff, and like you go to school high, not high school, and I was looking for something like you're providing right now. I wanted to go to one of these like Oracle high school alternatives where you just go like once a week, you got your homework and blah blah blah. But just you get disenfranchised by certain things. But yeah, have you noticed as far as like this whole and how it's created like these kids to be like instant gratification or like self-entitled, especially that kind of stuff, and how they're like just being like brainwashed into these ideas of like, well, no, like actually that there's not really that equal worth. Did you put in the same time and effort and focus to be the best, like you're saying, like, and I don't think people are through these nanny state systems of schooling or whatever, they're not really encouraging people to be their best sometimes, it seems, and that's nothing against the teachers and whatnot, but we just see the end result. It's like, look at the bigger picture kind of thing, and like what is the youth doing? They seem pretty confused and looking down at like we used to do in preschool. Oh, do you have a innie or an outie? Like what's like
It's like, you know, the kids are also showing, I think, their disrespect. Like intuitively they know like they're not being treated right, that where they're going every day is not really cool. So they're not really engaged in that, and they're finding their own way, you know, which is through partying and, you know, or kind of like let's have fun. And I think part of it too is they're not being encouraged to think for themselves. They're not being encouraged to ask questions or to challenge anything, you know. So they're being given things to memorize, you know, and so it's like their identities are not being encouraged to blossom in their own individual way. Saw a play last night, and the curious incident of the dog. I actually know what is it called, just so I get it right. The curious incident of the dog in the nighttime, right? And there is a scene of a school. This boy who's autistic, very, very intellectually high functioning, and wanting to do something different, you know, than in the timing of things. And the principal is there saying, well, you know, then you would be different. You wouldn't be like everyone else. We should have you take your tests with everyone else. You know, it's kind of funny. And it was like, yeah, they want sort of kids that are all the same, the cogs in the wheel. And I want kids to like just to blossom into their true unique self, right? And so what's how can a voluntary schooling be different than, say, just a standard homeschooling where you're doing the same curriculum at home on a computer, answering questions, you know? I see that is not really the answer either.
Well, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. There's so much to talk about. So I had this question too about voluntary schools. Well, my first dream was to start a physical school. And I found out that I can only affect maybe 200 students in that school, and there's big capital investment required. So I started doing research. I found a voluntary school in England, and it's been around for 100 years. And here's how it works. You show up to school, and they say, hey, welcome to Summerhill. Here's a list of optional classes. If you want to take them, check them off the box. If you don't, we have 10 acres. We have a bike ramp in front. We got musical instruments in the barn. We got a tree house over there. Go play, go have fun, go be a kid. And when you want to take classes, let us know. And these kids' eyes are just like so big. They're like, yes. So there's a great movie about this school called Summerhill 2008. That's free on YouTube. And it's very well made. It's been around for 100 years. There's also a school now that's really doing well called Acton Academy. A lot of respect for them. There's other self-directed teen centers. I think North Star is the name. And there's a bunch of other schools that are popping up. Carrie McDonald does a lot of interviews on these types of schools. But the essence is that it's voluntary attendance and it's a voluntary curriculum. Why? Because learning is fun and exciting. We want to learn. I agree with Buckminster Fuller. He said every child's a born genius. The problem is they get de-genius, trying to please their teachers and please their parents. So if you're listening to this, you're a genius. Accept that reality, that you are great and that you have all this amazing potential and intelligence within you. Even if you didn't do good in math or language, Howard Gardner said there's 8 types of intelligences, which include spatial visualization, physicality, music, language, interpersonal, intrapersonal. And I'm like, that's awesome. And then as I started to think about John Gatto, he said, your education should be as unique as your fingerprints. So how unique are your fingerprints? You're the only one on the earth with your fingerprints, the only one on the earth with your DNA. So I believe there's 7 billion types of intelligences. And we were given the opportunity to explore these things with this life, find out what you love. Paulo Coelho, the author of The Alchemist, he said, you know you're on your path with this one indicator. It's called enthusiasm.
Yes.
When you feel excited and enthusiastic about something, that's your indicator. Ding, 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 ding. Keep doing that. That's how you know where you're just so joyful to be doing what you're doing and follow that. And so some people call it passion, but enthusiasm seems to be the kind of the indicator and signal to ourselves, like, wow, I'm excited. So, and I tell parents, and I have 20 curriculum that I've created and I put in the Homeschool Leader Facebook group. One of them is called the presentation curriculum. And what's that? That is the ability to present. Just like I'm talking with you, we're talking here. Public speaking is one of the greatest fears of students because that's how they trained us. They trained us to be afraid to speak and be judged by our peers. They use this as a technique to embarrass and humiliate 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds. They know this in the school system. If you're having somebody get out of control, stand them up, have them say something, and embarrass them, and all of a sudden their self-esteem goes down, their self-concept goes down. So I found out that this skill, some people would rather die than speak in public. So what that means is you want your son or daughter to learn how to publicly speak, because if they're really smart and intelligent, which they are, but they don't have the ability to verbalize it, then all that knowledge is stuck inside of them and they can't get it out.
Yes.
So the presentation curriculum is when your son or daughter comes up to you, and whether they're 8 or 10 or 18, however old they are, and they're excited about something, you see the big eyes and they're just so excited. Even if you're busy working or cooking or doing something, take a 2-minute time out and put what you're doing down, turn to your child and say, tell me what is going on. Now, what that's going to do is that's going to give them acceptance. That's going to give them validation. That's going to give them an audience that tells them what they have to say is important. And they might be talking about worms, snails, or video games, and you care less. But you are the space. So what you're doing is you're allowing them to speak with passion and enthusiasm. And all of a sudden, you do that a few times. And now, when you call on them at the family dinner or family reunion, say, hey, Susie, come share, what you shared with me the other day. Oh, and they come up and they're talking and they're, with the microphone, and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh man, I didn't know you can speak in public. Speaking in public is just talking with conviction and certainty and passion and something that you care about. The reason that we don't become good public speakers in school is because they're having us talk about the Oregon Trail or the organisms in school, like dissecting a frog or something. We don't care about that. We care about our own selves. We care about our own life, our own dreams, our own goals, our family, our passions, our hobbies. This is what we care about. And so once we get that, it's like, wow, we can all be public speakers. Yes, we can. So that's the presentation curriculum. And
can I just add one comment on that? That I also see that not related to art. Creating art, any creative expression is really discouraged in schools, like where if a kid draws and they're told, oh no, that's not right. A lot of kids quickly say, I'm not a good drawer. I can't draw. I can't create art. And I see, artistry, singing, theater, all of this is part of what you're talking about.
100%. That's why they got rid of music and they get rid of art classes. They don't want artists. They want cogs in the system. They want obedient soldiers and people that cannot think for themselves. Art requires creativity. Art requires courage. And so that's the right brain. And they want you on the left brain. Logic, math. That's why they do language in math, because it's all logical. You get up here analytical, but it's the artists who are the visionaries. It's the artists who can see the future and bring it back to us. So this is why with what's going on with the internet and artificial intelligence, it's like, well, they're going to take over. They're going to take over if you give them the ability to think for you. And Pablo Picasso said, every child is a born artist, but they lose that artistry trying to please their parents. So make sure that when you see your child being creative, you don't have to lie to them. You don't have to, patronize them, but encourage them that they are an artist. They have the ability to create, to design, to build. And when you're an artist, not everything is great. And so this goes to another curriculum, which is the mistakes curriculum. Schools teach us that mistakes are bad, but actually mistakes are the way. Same thing in business, everything. You guys are doing a podcast. I'm doing a show. It's very difficult to record and edit and put everything in there, make logos, do all these things. I'm like, this is difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. So should I just give up? Oh, this sucks. No, you keep going. That's what happens. And I got a great story from Sarah Blakely. You ever heard of the clothing company called Spanx?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's like a really fashionable thing. It's like kind of like pleather and I want to say like yoga pants, but that might be a little bit inaccurate. But it's a nice clothing company. Anyways, she is a self-made billionaire, and she was being interviewed, and they asked her, what was your childhood like? And here's what a self-made billionaire woman said. She says, when I was young, my father would ask me, hey, honey, what mistakes did you make this week? And she was thinking that he wanted her to be perfect. So she was like, oh, I didn't make any mistakes. And he would be sad. He'd be like, okay. And then he kept asking her week in and week out. And then pretty soon she's like, I think he wants me to make more mistakes. So he asked her, honey, what mistakes did you make this week? And she's like, oh, I tried to play in the band and this instrument, and I was like really terrible. And he's like, that's great, high five. And so she's like, oh, that's what he wants me to do. So next week, what mistakes did you make? And she was start telling about all these mistakes, and she's like, yes. So what her amazing father did is he reframed and redefined what a mistake is. A mistake isn't bad. A mistake is good. A mistake is a teacher. So that's the essence of the mistakes curriculum. As moms and dads out there, you want your children to make mistakes. I'm not talking about running across the street where a mistake, cost them their life, but I'm talking about, scraping their knee or, scribbling on something, ruining a shirt, or these different, maybe they fall on their bike or they, hurt themselves in a small way, or something happens, and say, wow, what did you learn from that? Because it's through pain that we learn the most. And maybe it's just, maybe their handwriting or something, whatever it is, mistakes are good. So this is the other side of artistry and entrepreneurship. And this is why I have the entrepreneurship group, because I realize that the entrepreneurs are the ones who change the world. Just like we have these phones and these devices and all these things, and you can be an artist and be like a coder or a graphics designer, or so many different ways to express art. But the thing is to produce. Instead of being a consumer, be a producer. Instead of being a military man, be a peace man. Instead of being a clerk, be the CEO of your own life and direct yourself. And so you got to reaffirm this. Okay, so this has taken me years to get clear on, because I've gone to so many events and interview people and talk with people. And so now I'm realizing that I have programming inside of me from a young age, and it's still running. So I have to reprogram myself. And Bruce Lipton talks about it, and actually a lot of other people, but it's all about
Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, just
Epigenetics.
There's a book from, I want to say 1978 or 1982 called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And amazing book. And basically it's like this. You speak your goals into a recording device, and you play it in the morning for like 20 minutes while you're shaving or getting ready, and play it in the evening. And you program yourself with this inner dialogue. So it seems that humans are like computers, and we are the hardware, and is the software that runs our mind, and that is through our thoughts. So whatever thoughts that we have, that is our software. So if you have any negative self-talk, begin to create positive self-talk. Speak love into yourself. Speak abundance into yourself. Speak health into yourself. And that way you start to program yourself. And that's the same thing for your son or daughter. You don't have a choice if your son or daughter is programmed. The only choice you have is what type of programming is going into them. Either it's going to be statism and slavery, or voluntarism and freedom. And this is where you start to have the empowerment mindset. In terms of homeschooling, let me define that here. So parents realize it's not school at home. I talk about 4 types of phases of homeschooling, where school at home is number 1. You try to replicate the school system at home. I advise you to move on to the next phase called deschooling. Deschooling is where you let the pressure release from their minds and from their spirit of a forced learning environment, getting permission to urinate or defecate or do mandatory curriculum. No.
Sit next to who they want, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's deschooling. And the rule of thumb is that for every year they're in a forced learning environment, you want to give them a month of total freedom. And that means if they want to play video games all day, sleep all day, whatever it is, let them do that, because it's like a soda. When you shake it up, before you can drink it, you got to let the pressure release. Your child's under a lot of pressure. So you want to get to deschooling and let them depressurize themselves. And then homeschooling is when a leader creates an atmosphere where personalized learning can occur. And so that's you, mom or dad. You're the leader. And you don't have to be the teacher, okay? You don't have to do school at home. It's math. It's science and language arts time. Be a facilitator. Be a coach. Be a learning partner. Be a counselor. Be a guide. These are better and more empowering positions that you can be, rather than being a teacher and feeling all that stress and all that pressure. And then the 4th phase of homeschooling is self-directed learning. Some people call it unschooling, and this is what we're doing right now. We are directing ourselves for the benefit of our own life and our own education. There's nobody forcing us to do this. There's nobody saying, you have to do this to graduate or you're going to fail. You know, we're directing ourselves, and we don't need somebody to create this environment. And then from my school, Valor Academy, there's 2 concepts I want parents to know about. One is that the world is the classroom. You're always learning. Class is always in session, if you choose to. And then the other concept is that anything and anybody you can learn from can be a teacher. So yes, humans can be teachers. Devices can be teachers. Books can be teachers. Strangers, homeless people, executives, whatever it is, they're always,
Trees, plants.
yes, they're always teaching if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, which is why I tell parents one of the most important things you can do is to not ruin your child's love of learning, which means just let
Yes.
them love learning. How did your child learn to walk? How did they learn to talk? Not with coercion, not with curriculum, but with encouragement, with support. You can do it. Yes. Oh, you almost did it. Hey, that's all right. Try again. Oh, you can do it. Yes. Oh, yeah, dada, mama, you know, you're encouraging them. That's with love. So that's all you do, is you allow that love of learning to just grow, instead of putting them in the system where they pour poison on this love of learning. And now you forced to do what you don't want to do. We want to learn. We want to maximize our potential. We want to achieve our dreams. And so this is where mom and dad, I invite you guys to consider going after your dreams today. Whether you're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or however old you are, your child is looking at you and they're watching you. And so if you're reading, they say, okay, mom's reading, dad's reading, I should read. Or if you're doing a learning project, oh, mom's learning about gardening or dad's building something in the garage or something, I should learn how to do that too. So they're observing, and your demonstration is what is most impactful. So rather than saying, hey, do what I say, it is silently, I will do something and you can join me if you want. But the thing is that learning is fun, learning is empowering, and it is the most important skill of the 21st century is self-directed learning, the love of learning, how do you learn, and self-knowledge. You're different than me. I'm different than the next guy. And it's my responsibility to learn about myself. And it's your child's responsibility to learn about themselves. And it's your responsibility to learn about yourself. So this is why they say the more you know about yourself, the more you know about others. Because we're all very similar. You know, we're all like different, you know, individuations of the source. And we're all experiencing life in a very similar way through our 5 senses. So these are the things of an educated person, and I think these are the things that are very empowering, that, as you can tell, I get excited about it because it liberated me from the system. And I was like John Gatto, and I asked him, I got to spend, many days with him before he passed away a few years ago, and got, rest in power, John, we love you. And so I asked him, I said, John, why did you spend your life in a school system knowing that it was this way, and you spent all this time researching it and writing? And he says, I had to know for my own self what was going on in these schools, because he could observe and he saw what was going on, but he went down the rabbit hole. I gave you that Johann Fichte quote from 1806. I got all kinds of quotes from Elwood P. Hubberly, from all these guys, the dean of Stanford Education, the commissioner of education. I got these from John Gatto. I'm standing on the shoulders of John Gatto, just like many other people are. And he's not the only one. There's Charlotte Isserbit and Anthony Sutton and Richard Grove these days, and Matt Bedro's doing some great work. But in terms of understanding the roots of the school system, John Gatto is the shining example. He inspired Robert Kiyosaki to speak out about it, Dr. Christiane Northrup, Howard Zinn, a bunch of other people, because John was in the most prestigious position, which is the state teacher of the year. And so New York is a big state, a lot of stuff going on in New York. And then what's so interesting, that award is voted by the people. And I'll probably upload them here. I'm going to start a Gatto Academy here shortly, but so people can see it. But it's the people who voted for the teacher, not the politicians. So when the people vote for you, the organization is, okay, you're number one. I guess you're the state teacher of the year, because he was making such a difference with his students that the students loved him, the parents loved him. And I got to give you a couple stories before we get too long here. First of all, you can see some of his stories on a documentary called Classrooms of the Heart. He talks about, they actually go into his classroom and they video record what is going on. And here's one of the best stories. So he's an 8th grade school teacher in urban New York, and he got about 30 students. And he says at the beginning of every year, he would get time with each student, and he would ask them, what is a learning project that you want to do this year? So he would not participate in the forced curriculum of the state, because he realized when he was in this classroom by himself with 30 students, he said, this is my laboratory. And this is like, I got these children for like 45 minutes, and I can do whatever I want in this building, in this room, as long as I play the game outside of the room. And so what he would do, he would actually go and meet with the parents if he could. Each parent he would try to meet with. And so with 5 classes, he had like 120 students or so, 130 students, something like this. So he would get the permission to do a learning project, and then the student would spend the whole year, 8, 9, 10 months, however long a school year is, and they would spend that whole year on that learning project. And so many good examples. One is a girl, she was 13 years old, and her dream was she wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. So, okay, she wanted to be an Olympic swimmer. He would help him a little bit, So he said, how about this? How about you create a swimming pool guide for the city of New York? And that way somebody could, go look at all the different pools through your guide, and they can choose what pool they want to go to. So she's like, okay, but she's like, well, I'll have to leave school. He says, I'll cover for you. So she would go to all the different public pools in the New York area and make notes, how big it is, lighting, cost, requirements, all these things. But then she would do that during the day, but he would mark her present in class. So, and this is with the parents' approval. You always want to talk with the parents. The parents are the guardians and the stewards, right? So, and he said, sometimes the principal would come around, and there would only be 10 students in his classroom, but he's marked, like 30 students were present there. So he said, I could do that when I was under the radar, but then when I started getting more famous and more people wanted to come observe my classrooms and such, I couldn't, my system didn't work anymore, because now he was like on the radar. So that was one of the great examples of allowing a girl to pursue her own interests. And what's interesting about that is she made the guide of New York City pools. It was such a good guide that a local publisher wanted to buy it from her, and they offered her $500, but the only caveat was that they wanted to change the name of the author because it would look really bad if they hired a 13-year-old author, and she rejected the offer.
Good
She
for
said,
her.
"No, if you want to use my work, you put my name on it." So,
Good for her.
yeah,
You know, on that note,
That's good.
I just wanted to highlight like what you're talking about involves valuing each individual child, right? And their
yes,
uniqueness, and
yes,
how exciting and valuable that is, because when you value a child's uniqueness, then they value themselves. It
that's
becomes
right.
internalized. And when a child values themselves, then they are able to express their unique greatness,
Yes,
right? And find their genius. And when we're trying to put kids in little categories and cookie cutter curriculums, that takes away from that
yep.
opportunity.
Yep. Yeah. So that's self-valuing ourselves is self-esteem. We feel good about ourselves, self-respect. We respect ourselves. And so I would say for the first 10, 12 years, maybe 14, your child is looking into your eyes and they are asking you, please tell me I'm important. Please tell me I'm special. Please tell me I'm valuable. And that's creating their identity. So when you hand your child off to total strangers for, 5 or 10 or 12 years, the strangers don't care. And again, I know there's good teachers out there. I know there's bad teachers out there, but the system doesn't allow the teacher to care. The teacher barely knows your child's name. They got 130 students every day, and so the teacher is stressed out because they got to do this curriculum, and the teachers are evaluated on the STAR tests. So you see all these different power dynamics in this institution, and your child is an afterthought. The school system is a $700 billion a year business. So it's larger than ExxonMobil, and Gatto says it's the largest business in the country because all the ancillary businesses that depend upon it. So imagine the book publishers, the bus manufacturers, the architects, the uniform makers, the gym builders, the supply makers.
The
These are
cooks and
all
kitchen.
businesses that are making a huge profit from the system. I'm not saying those people are bad. I'm saying is that it's
Yeah.
based on coercion, and so you get a check. And by the way, your property taxes are funding these schools. So everybody's getting screwed here. You pay off your house, but you still got to pay 1% of your house value to fund the transgender agenda in the school, the force of school, the coercion in the school. And this has been going on for decades and generations. And so Gatto says, how many more centuries are we going to let this thing go on? So
Yeah.
this is why I get so excited about it. I started the Gatto project, and now it's like the Gatto movement, which is an
Out of the
acronym.
ghetto.
Yeah, which is Gatto, which is get all the thinkers out of forced schooling. So that's kind of the big dream. And if you just want to use it for your own son or daughter, then it's get a tremendous thinker out. Your
Oh,
son or daughter is a tremendous thinker. Get them out of there. If it's going to take 6 months or 12 months, fine. But figure out a plan. All the answers have been found, and you can find them in these groups that I provided and share some of the information here. But mostly we're dealing with our own programming. I'm going to ruin my child's life versus I'm going to set my child free.
yeah.
How I see schools right now, schools are on fire. Okay, so rather than thinking, what am I going to do when I get my child out of the school system, I invite you to consider just get them out first, and then you can figure out all that stuff. They are getting brutalized and demoralized. They're having serious mind control happen on them in these schools. So this is why I'm trying to, urgently, share some of these things, because I was in there and I felt the injustice, and I wish somebody like you, Derek, somebody would have graduated me. If somebody said you could graduate at 14, I would have said, please, where do I sign? Get me out of here, But I didn't know. And so now I know. And I guess this is like the old G.I. Joe commercial. Knowing's half the battle. Yeah, knowing's half the battle, but action is where the real work is. And that's what they taught us. Just knowledge is power. No. Action is power. So this is where we want to become aware of what's happening and see that this is the solution. Get your child out and the curriculum will get resolved. I want to talk about socialization too here, and then we can wrap up shortly. A lot of parents would say, well, if I homeschool my child, how are they going to become socialized?
Right.
Okay, well, let's look what's happening right now in the school system.
There's huge divides on the playground and all that. You got bullies and they're taught not to even use the self-defense principle because they'll get in trouble if they fight back. It's like, it's so, screwy, for sure.
They're raising snowflakes, political correctness people who are afraid to speak the truth. And that's what this is about. The truth is a weapon, and that's why it's the First Amendment in the Constitution, because it's more powerful than guns. Speaking the truth is more powerful than weapons. And, I appreciate the Constitution. I appreciate the Bill of Rights. I appreciate the Declaration of Independence. But they failed because they put the premise out there that somebody else is allowed to take our money. So if you look at the Constitution, it talks about taxation and war. So it basically says the Congress is allowed to tax and create war. Well, let's use accurate language. Taxation is robbery, it's theft. War is mass murder. So where did the Congress, which are just humans, where did they get the ability to create mass murder and to rob people? It doesn't exist. And so this is why statism is slavery. So what's happening right now, in my opinion, the Declaration of Independence is really powerful. I really, those guys have a lot of courage. I appreciate what they did. They didn't ask to be free. They declared their freedom. So they said, hey, King George, we're free. Come get some. That's what it was about. And then if you read that document, you'll see that the, quote, just powers of government come from the consent of the governed. So if the just powers of government come from the consent of the governed, what happens if I didn't consent? Then the government has no power. So this is where I really emphasize, it's not a metaphor that you are a queen, Leslie, and you are a king, Derek, and so am I, and anybody listening, you're royalty, man. You are the one. You are the highest authority on the earth over you, period. And I knew that as a kid, but I couldn't articulate that. So what's happening is we're going from monarchy, to constitutional republic, statism, to voluntarism, which is self-ownership, personal responsibility, non-aggression, self-defense. Okay, this is the shift of human consciousness. This is what's happening. Now, you might not believe me because you haven't seen it, but I've gone to Anarchapulco for 6 years. I went to the Porcupine Festival in New Hampshire. I went to Exit and Build in Texas and the Greater Reset in Mexico, Anarcha Vegas in Vegas. I've seen it with my own eyes. It is happening. So that's what you want to be aware of. And we're going to do that up here in Northern California. And we're going to do this wherever we're going, because after I go to these events, Leslie, I feel like so excited. I get to meet my new friends. I get to meet visionaries, people I respect, shake hands, have a beer with these people or whatever, and like, wow, they're just regular people. This is awesome. And I spend 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe a month there, and I go home. And that means I got to wait a year to go see my buddies again. And I said, you know what? That's when I started Santa Cruz Voluntarius. I said, I'm going to start a group, and we're going to be a local Anarchapulco. We're going to be a local freedom community where we're not confused about Democrats and Republicans. We're dissolving the divide. We all believe in voluntary consensual relationships. And so I started doing that bonfire. And then once the pandemic hit, that's when we started doing it weekly. And so we would gather. And after a few weeks, I'm like, I think we should have a meeting, because before we just have some music and some firewood and just enjoy, hey, high fives or whatever. And then we was like, let's have a meeting. And so I said, okay, this is a voluntary solutions bonfire. We believe in self-ownership, non-aggression, self-defense. And, and then we have a conversation, talk what's going on.
And free hugs.
Yep. Free hugs, right? So free hugs, that came out of the Voluntary Solutions bonfire. And we did a heart circle as well. We did a self-care Sunday as well. Shout out to Lotus Dawn, the yoga teacher, because we were doing the bonfires for like, I don't know, like a year almost, maybe 40 weeks. And she says, I'm a yoga teacher. I love what you're talking about. And I quit doing yoga because I was around all these lefty statists and I just wasn't inspired to do my classes. So I stopped. And then she said, I started, being around you guys and seeing what you stand for. Maybe we can do some freedom yoga. I'm like, let's do it. So it turns out that we're doing free hugs on Friday. We had the bonfire on Saturday, and then we did self-care Sunday on Sunday, and we would do yoga. And so she's a sovereign queen goddess. God bless her. It's amazing. And we were doing yoga, and it was, starts out with 2 of us, 3 of us, 4 of us, and then we get like 8 people and 10 people. And then when Derek and Miriam came into town with their activation tour, we had, 30 people out there, 35 people doing freedom yoga. Could you imagine doing yoga with all voluntarious people? It is so high vibrational. I mean, her energy was just like so high, because now we're not talking about left, right. We're not talking about divide. We're talking about unification. We're talking about equality. We're talking about the truth of this existence, which is, it's so beautiful to be with you guys. It's so beautiful to be here. And we are on the grass and the sun, 75 degrees. And you're just like, this is amazing. So I think we'll do something like that up here. And I invite everybody out there.
Got a yoga teacher in mind.
Yes. So I invite everybody listening to think about this. And I think I spoke to somebody about making a documentary about what we did down there, because we have so much video content. And I went through a lot of craziness down there, which was getting arrested for not wearing a mask in a post office and other things. And I filed a federal lawsuit. So you can learn more about that at davidjamesrodriguez.com. I don't know all the details of how to file a lawsuit, but I'm trying to find justice on the planet in a peaceful way, if possible. So it's like, when you start to activate yourself, you attract people, but it's all about the leadership. And this is why homeschooling is so important, is that your son or daughter, they know they're a leader. They know they are the ones to create success in their life. And more important than you, mom and dad, thinking like your child is a trophy or a prize, and whatever they do is a reflection on you. Allow them to direct themselves, and that way you can give it back to them, which is, yes, my job as a parent, I believe, out there, is to love unconditionally and to create a bond of trust. That is it. You don't got to worry about their mathematics and all these things. And of course, reading, all these things. But these things your child wants to learn when they want to learn them. Do you like to be forced to do something? No, none of us like to be forced to do something. So we don't need to force it on our children. This is where the real high spiritual value comes in, called faith. You want to have faith in your child's ability, faith in where they're going, faith in their genius, faith in their intelligence, faith in their ability, their strength, and their power. They are a son or daughter of God, the creator, the source that lives inside of them. That is true in my belief. And you don't have to believe it if you don't want to, but that's what I believe, because that's what I feel about myself. I could feel that as a young boy. I could feel some type of power inside of me, and I'm asking the adults, and the adults don't know, and I'm asking and waiting, and then eventually I'm like, these guys are all bullshitting me, dude. Like, these guys have no freaking idea what's going on. And so I found voluntarism, like, that's the truth, which is, it's an idea, and I'm open to new ideas. But if you can show me a better idea than voluntary consensual relationships for all people, please show me the way. But this seems to be the foundation of the next phase of human conscious evolution. And it's very exciting, but it begins with us, and it begins one relationship at a time. And that's why I started the Freedom Lovers show, because I am programming myself. I'm raising my consciousness. I don't even know if anybody's listening out there, but it's about me developing me. And if other people do that for themselves, that's cool too. But I'm responsible for me. That's it. And if you haven't seen the 1982 movie called Gandhi about his life, very powerful, many great quotes in that film. They asked him, Gandhi, what is your message to the world? And he says, my life is my message, which is,
Yes.
how are you living? How am I living? So I started taking a look in the mirror and I'm like, man, what am I doing? How am I participating in my own slavery? What am I contributing to this situation? Yes, my compliance is contributing. My obedience is contributing. And then when they threw me in the slammer for 2 weeks for starting a freedom event down there in Santa Cruz, I got really up close and personal with like this whole system. I said, oh, okay, so if you go after the system, I think they might do that. So now this is the strategy that John and Derek came up with, which is exit and build. Exit their systems and build the world that you want. What do you mean? Private schools, private grocery stores, private hospitals. This is the future. And there's people that are doing. I interviewed Mike Cullum with his private grocery store. There's some other friends. I know that they started a health clinic, and I think there's health clinics popping up all over the place because what they're doing with the medical licenses and the doctors, they're basically using the license to control them, and that's what it's all
Coercing
about.
weapon.
Yep,
Hmm.
that's what it's all about, is control. And many of these doctors, I really appreciate these doctors that are speaking out about the truth and the scamdemic, what's going on. And I hope more of them discover voluntarism, and they will, because it is the solution. Because if I need a license, and I was a licensed insurance agent for many years, and home inspector, and of course driver's license, these are all little pieces of plastic that have no significance in reality other than stopping an armed guy, jackboot, from kidnapping me or shutting me down or whatever it is. It's literally a piece of plastic. So,
With a number on it that is attached to us as an identity,
yep,
right?
that's right.
It
Yes.
serves as
So,
a control device.
100%. And so this is a great question about the digital identity. This is a revelation I had this past couple weeks. As we create digital IDs, maybe on the blockchain or maybe in a private way, we can transcend the vaccine passport that they have coming out, the digital ID that they have coming out, because that's how they control us. ID, I give you my driver's license. ID, I give you my passport. Okay, so what if there was a private ID? What if there was a voluntary ID that I could give to you, Derek, and say, hey, man, here's my online ID and your ID, and let's send some money back and forth, or, I'll buy your widget, you buy my widget, and like there is that need for some type of identification. So I hope some entrepreneurs out there come up with it, some, great coders or technologists out there, because that's what it's all based on, identity. And it's all about safety, in quotes, right? Like, no, it's not. Government is organized crime. It is coercion. It is intergenerational, and it's a mafia. But they use the school system as the factory of
Yes.
creating citizens and taxpayers and soldiers and everything for their system. So you can see what we need is a factory of freedom lovers.
Yeah.
Of
Love it.
freedom.
Love it, David.
Yep, and that's what's happening. That's what's happening in homeschooling, self-directed learning. So I think there's a lot of hope out there. I think there's a lot of positivity that's happening. And you're an example, Leslie and Derek, because look what you did. You created this show, and you got 16 episodes in, and you keep staying the course. And who knows what's going to happen? Well, I know what's going to happen. The truth's going to get out. People are going to find you. You're going to keep interviewing great people, and whoever's listening is going to get one or two solutions. And it's going to change their life. Not because you're corporate media, but because you're real grassroots. You're real men and women on the earth, and that's what humanity is looking for right now.
Yeah.
Cheers
Oh, I
to
love
that,
it.
David.
You're
Yeah.
bringing up so many great points. Derek, did you
Yeah,
want
and
to say?
yeah, I'm gonna get back to you like in real life about some things, but yeah, the whole homeschooling entrepreneurship is something that I've been like really starting to articulate a little bit more because we're still stuck in this society where we think getting that diploma or the college degree is gonna launch the young youth into a successful career, all that jazz. But like just having that this breakaway, I wouldn't say breakaway society, but like
Yeah.
for them to be in a position to earn a living. And I mean, it's I'm thinking
During a
about,
transition time, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yes. It's a bridge time. Absolutely. We're all in this bridge time, man. The last 3 years has been serious mind control. If you did not get the jab over the last 3 years, you have overcome the strongest marketing campaign in history. And so if you did, which a third of Americans did, and I think a third of the planet has, these are some of the rough numbers that I've seen. This is very good sign. So we are exiting this fabricated system. Some of you guys know about the Federal Reserve System, which is all this fiat currency. And we haven't had a monetary collapse in the US in over 100 years, but they happen in Argentina, they happen in Zimbabwe, they happen in Germany, in the Weimar Republic. When a government prints money and it's just paper, eventually the paper becomes too abundant and people lose trust, they stop using it, and it goes down to zero. That's why gold and silver are, proven money throughout history, because you can't fabricate those things. So the transition, that's why they call it the Great Reset. They literally want to 100 years of this extortion of inflation and monetary, military extravagance, out there making all this money, killing people, and they want to make a bridge and basically continue that power to the digital currency. They call it the central digital banking currency, CDBC, and that's related to the digital ID. That's their bridge. So instead of going over their bridge to their continent, let's create our own bridge and go to our own continent. And that's happening right now. There's a guy named Balaji on Twitter. He calls something called the network state. And he said back in the day, the rural people would move to the city because that's where the jobs were. And so you would do that for economic purposes. But he said now, because of the internet, you can be in a rural place and still make a living as if you were in an urban location. So now he's talking about network countries or network nations. And I think that's happening, which is, let's say you and I, we all create the, let's say the dissolve the divide nation. And so here we are, 3 of us, and you have other community members. And now we have 30 people, and now we have our own digital community. He calls it a cloud community. And then eventually we get to meet up in physical reality. And so that's what I did with the Santa Cruz Volunteers, have a cloud community, and then we would get together in physical reality. And now I think the big opportunity and challenge now is to be in the same location so that when shit hits the fan, we got each other's back. We were talking about this recently. If we call 911 and they don't show up for an hour and a half, then what's the point, right? Dale Brown there in Detroit, Michigan, urban Detroit, they don't show up for 4 hours if they show up at all. So he started the Threat Management Center. And what they do, they're a private threat prevention company. And they have a community, let's say a neighborhood, like 500 homes or 300 homes, and they all pay $10 a month, and then they have Dale Brown on patrol. And if something goes on, they have some intruder, they have some scare, they call up Dale, and he's there within 5 minutes. He has his body cam, he has his Hummer, he has and he's a private client, a private individual. So and then Derek Bros talks about freedom cells, and you can go join freedomcells.org. Find your local people, get together online, and then come together in physical reality.
Yeah, and real quick, this is something universal. Anyone can do this, and just meet like-minded people. Go on meetup.com or whatever, and be like, hey, create a group. Who is interested in this, or this is something that anyone can do in any community. And that's great. There's a lot to glean off from that, for sure.
This is where it's going. And so after the whole pandemic, the pandemic kind of helped me kind of learn some of these things, because I knew what was going on. We saw what was happening. I was in Anarchapulco February 2020, and about, I think, a week after, they shut down all the conferences like Coachella and South by Southwest. And so we were all together I don't know, 1,200 of us or something. And we're like, hey, man, this all smells fishy. And of course, we know about vaccines and what's going on there. So we said, this is a vaccine agenda. And we got together in Santa Cruz and we said, hey, guys, this is pretty serious. You know, we got to do something. So we kind of, me and my buddy, Howard Lichtman, Etienne de la Boetie, Squared is his author's name. And he's got a great book, Government, the Biggest Scam in History.
Yeah, and James Cordner, he's been reading his book on his show, Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth, and we had him on speaking about a similar topic with the whole, like homeschooling and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yep. So this is something we discovered, what you guys are doing now. It's called the power of two. If I'm doing something by myself, I look crazy. But if I go with you, me and you together, now we got something going on here, right? We got two people. So me and him, we're like, hey, dude, let's get the people together. He's a voluntarist. I'm a voluntarist. I figured most of the people in the group are still a little bit statist. So we got together, and that's how we started doing the beach protest, which was they closed the beaches down right before summer. And I took it personal because I love swimming on a hot day. I really love it. So I took it personal. I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to grab, the sign says beach closed 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., right? Right when the sun's hot. I'm like, this is such a scam. So we took 12 people on a Friday, and I got the bullhorn. I say, we now declare the beach open. And then 12 of us walk down on the beach. And the police come out there, and they're like, hey, what's going on? And we live stream them. We say, hey, is this your beach? Where do you get the authority to tell us to leave the beach? The beach belongs to the people. This beach was here long before your organization was ever created. So we would hold our ground. And so what are they going to do? They can arrest 12 people. And so we came back the next week, 20 people. And then it went 30 people. And then 40 and 50, eventually 60 people. And then it's just, they couldn't handle it. And we have video footage of the health officer saying on camera, we were hoping to keep the beaches closed, but the people are not willing to be governed anymore in that regard. So we have to open up the beaches.
Yeah, that's great.
So that was a huge victory. Yeah.
So I have a comment and then a question. Maybe it's a good question to sort of close out on.
Yeah.
But the comment is kind of bringing us back to some of what I would say is harm being done in the school system, and it has a lot to do with the nutrition that they're providing children. Right? We have what the world calls taxation. We're calling theft, taking our money that's supposed to be put into the schools, investing into good stuff for our kids, and then but they're giving them horrible food and they're not putting a lot of money into the school. So that's one comment.
Yes.
The other thing to take you out, not to take you out, that you could take us out with, is what would you say to parents when they say, but my kid needs a high school diploma in order to get, function in this world. They need a job. To go to college, they need a diploma. And so when we're talking about this deschooling, unschooling, how do you talk to them about that point?
Yeah. So one of my speakers at my Education Options Expo, his name is Wes Beach, and he has been graduating students for 30 years. And he was my inspiration partly for starting Valor Academy. So anybody out there, parents who have a high school diploma, has anybody ever asked you about your high school diploma since you got it? I bet they haven't, because in real life, let's say you have a business or a job, they don't say, what was your GPA in high school? They say, can you type? Can you do this? So what we focus on is skills and knowledge. And sometimes that's reflected in a high school diploma. Sometimes it's not. I think 50% of high school graduates in New York, I believe I saw, are illiterate. So how can that be? Because the school system is a money-making machine. How does the school get money? Based on attendance. So that's how they get all their money, is the roster. Is Johnny here? Yes, present. Okay, they get money that day. Average daily attendance, ADA is what's called. So I learned what Wes was doing, and he has a couple books out there. about his testimonies. And I interviewed him. I did a 2-hour interview with him. And he did 2 speeches, with us out there. And I got so much respect for him because he was in the mainstream schools just like John Gatto was. But he realized, like, I'm not really helping these kids. They don't want to be here. So he started graduating 14, 15, 16-year-olds. I think he graduated his granddaughter at age 12. So I haven't done 12 or 13 yet. I'd love to. The youngest I've graduated is 14. But it's a piece of paper. So when your son or daughter goes to get a job, where did they graduate? Oh, Valor Academy. Boom, check a box. Versus dropout or, high school proficiency exam. They can do that. GED, right? There's different pathways, but a high school diploma is better because of what it does for your son or daughter's self-esteem and what it does in the conversation. Even if you hear that, like, let's say you hear Susie graduated high school at 15, what do you feel when you hear that? You're like, oh my gosh, you must be a freaking genius, man. Like, you graduated high school at 15. So it's giving that level up, and it's allowing them to check the box. And in California, the high school diploma replaces the need for a worker's permit. So you either have a high school diploma or you got a worker's permit. So now they can go to work. So this is a very key part of the solution, which is, what are we going to do? Well, yes, that's the first step. Next step is you can do a lot, So yeah, take a look at some of those speeches, an interview that I did with Wes Beach. I went and interviewed him in his office, in his garage. And I'm like, wow, this is where the magic happens. He says, yeah, the parents come here and they sit down and, and so I even asked him, I said, so you've been doing this for 25 years at that point, and has the government ever come to look at your paperwork? He said, no, they've never come to look at my paperwork. I was like, it's all psychological. It's all the panopticon. The panopticon is the theory that, you're being watched, and we all feel that sometimes, right? We're being watched here sometimes, but it's like, so what? If you do what's right, you have peace of mind. You're not outnumbered. You're out organized. So it's be time to get organized. And, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I have to increase my marketing. I have to do better and reach more people because I got a real solution, and I have to develop these things, like the website and the business and these types of things, right? So when I'm doing the homeschool entrepreneurs in that group, I'm doing it for myself so that I can, kind of grow myself. But eventually I'm going to become a consultant for these people, and they're going to say, hey, help me start my business. And say, okay, let's start a business, pay me $2,000 and then we'll get you up to, $1,000 a month in a few months or something. And I want to help you, but I can't help you until I help me. So that is focusing on business or commerce or marketing, entrepreneurship. And whether it takes a year or 5 or 10 years, this is the way out, in my opinion, is taking responsibility for our life. And when the colonists first got here, okay, let's imagine, called 1600, 1700, they came on a ship escaping Europe to have religious freedom. Because in Europe, the king was also the head of the church. And so that's why we are separate from church and state, allegedly. And so there was no companies out here. It was wild land. So what do? You got to figure it out, and start building. So everybody had an independent career. In Abraham Lincoln's talk to, I can't remember what it was, 1862. I'll send you the link if you want. But he said that the majority of people, I think it's 70% or so, have an independent livelihood. So you don't have to become a big business person, right? Just be independent entrepreneur. And I think 70% of businesses in America are solopreneur. So you don't have to have employees and be like, Elon Musk. But one of the great quotes I have from Muhammad Uhud, he's a Nobel Prize winning entrepreneur, teacher, or microfinance guy in Indonesia. He gives micro loans to mostly women, like $30, so they can go buy product and then go to the market and sell it. Very powerful stuff. He said, we are all entrepreneurs, and we've been that way since we were in the caves and we had to go gather food. We're all self-employed. But as soon as they said, you're labor, put a label on it and say you're an employee, then we think, okay, I'm an employee, I'm labor, but you're actually president, you're actually CEO, you're actually the director, you're actually the boss of your life. And that's what children know, and that's what I think the solution is. So yes, the high school diploma is a box to check. Nobody's ever asked me about my GPA in college. In fact, my college degree is in business, and they didn't even teach me to be entrepreneur. They teach me to be an employee for the corporations. So I think we're getting back to basics.
A new paradigm.
Yep, paradigm shifting. Yep. So we're going from statism to voluntarism, which means no moral code to a moral code. We're going from disrespect to respect. We're going from dishonor to honor. And this is what we want, because we've been on shaky ground for so many generations. We're like shooting in the dark, or blind leading the blind. And we're starting to realize, hey, you politicians, you left, you right, you guys are all lost. You guys are all promoting war. You're all promoting theft. You're all lying to us. You're being dishonest. You all want the ring of power. Mm-hmm. And what we learned from J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, even if you're Frodo and you're a good, humble dude, remember Frodo's about to throw the ring into the volcano, and all of a sudden his lust for power is like, it came over him. No, that's my ring. That's mine. Right? So what we got to do with statism is what we got to do with the ring of power. You throw it in the volcano. Yes. Nobody gets power, and it's all based on consent. So if you agree to that, you are a visionary. You are a chosen one, in my opinion. And this is where it is going. I've seen it with my own eyes, and that's why I'm so emphatic about it. Because after I've done my research, which I've done now I'm like, we got it. We got the solution. It's called consensual voluntary relationships. We call it equality for all. Nobody gets the ring of power. We're all equal. And the only way we can have power or authority over somebody is through consent, through agreement, right? So we do an agreement. You say, okay, I agree to work with you, or you agree to work with me, or whatever it is. Now we have a contract. And that's what we learned from Lysander Spooner in 1870, the Constitution of No Authority. And he destroyed the Constitution, which is you're not bound to a contract that you didn't sign.
Yes.
You agree to the Constitution. How can you be bound? Your parents and grandparents, they can't sign away your consent. You are an individual with individual consent and free will from the source, from the creator. Only you can sign away your obligations or your duties or whatever you want to sign away. And that's what I think we need to be teaching children. And so I hope that many of you parents reach out to me, and I'm happy to graduate your teenagers or work with you in homeschooling. But you can figure it out. You can do it. There's a lot of free content in the Homeschool Leader Facebook group, Homeschool Entrepreneurs. I have another group called Voluntary Village Creators. We got like 2,000 members in there. We want to create a voluntary world. So we're talking about voluntary neighborhoods and some of the stuff we're going to be doing up here, I believe, putting our heads together. I don't have all the answers. I just have one, which is nobody's allowed to use violence against a peaceful man. And this is an objective truth. This is objective morality. And I got so much respect for you guys for putting this show on, for having this conversation, and look forward to chatting with you guys more and creating stuff. Whatever we're going to do. It's a very exciting time to be alive, and I have a lot of hope, and there's a lot of obstacles in the way that we're all going to overcome. We're going to, keep charging the path and persisting. But I think the hill that we're on, which is building a voluntary world, voluntary village, voluntary neighborhoods, freedom cells, intentional type relationships and communities, it's a bigger mountain than voting for a politician. But this mountain is an actual solution that we can build a foundation on versus voting in a politician, for 2 or 3, 5, 10 years or whatever. It's like, no, money corrupts and power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So thank you for having me on the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
I hope
You've
you
been
guys
amazing, David.
Keep going. And if anybody wants to find me, you can find me at davidjamesrodriguez.com. If you want to learn about graduating your team, email me at info@thevaloracademy.com, and I'll work with you and chat with you, and we can jump on the phone. But thank you, Derek, for this production, and thank you, Leslie, for all the great questions. And yeah, look forward to jumping on again and continue the conversation.
Yeah, this
I love
is
the fact you
amazing.
brought
There's
it back
so
to the
much to
Shire.
talk about.
I'm just going to say something real quick, Leslie, and you can have the final words. Yeah, we were all in the end of slavery summit hosted by Corey Andrewitt. We were all interviewed by him, and he did a great presentation called Lord of the Rings Dethroned, something of that nature. And yes, going
Wow.
into the allegory of, let's say government is this, ultimate ring of that Sauron had, and anyone even of the highest caliber like Galadriel or Gandalf, they would be corrupted by it because absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it's this way of looking at government. Like, we cannot go in there and infiltrate it and resurrect a dead corpse of this. We have to flatline it and get something better, this new paradigm. So Corey's a great guy, and so are you, brother man.
That's great. Yeah, this is amazing.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for your time so much.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's
And
do it
thank you to
again.
everyone who's listening.
Yes.
No doubt.
Yes. Yeah,
All
we're on the
right.
winning team. We're on the winning
Yes,
side.
we
We win in the end, for sure. So when I was at one event, and then I'll jump off here, I was at Float Fest, and I asked some of the really smart people who are like in the tech world and on the blockchain stuff, and kind of they're building the world through the decentralized technology. So like, I don't know if you guys know about crypto and stuff, but you can't crack Bitcoin. It's been kind of made safe. And so anyways, I talked to some of my buddies out there, and I was like, do you think a voluntary world is inevitable? And they're both like, oh, definitely, like for sure, because eventually everybody's going to shift to blockchain for everything, and the government can't shut it down. They can kick me off of YouTube, and they can kick me off of Instagram and do what they've done to me and many other people out there, but they can't do it forever, and they can't do it on a decentralized platform where the people have the power. And so anyways, a voluntary world is inevitable. So I just want to encourage everybody out there that that's where it's going. Do not let the mainstream media demoralize you. That's what it's for. Yuri Bezmenov proved that. So they want to make you feel like a mouse, when in reality you are a very powerful spiritual being that they wish they had the power of your love, the power of your intention and your faith, and everything that's inside of you, and your ancestors, living with you and living with me. They're cheering for us. They're cheering for us. So yes, go forward. Do not fear. And I recommend you take a look at Joseph Campbell, the Hero's Journey, the 6-part series with Bill Moyers. Very powerful to give us a reflection of who we are, because organized religion tries to control us, but true spirituality, in my opinion, is about liberation.
And unity and connection, oneness. Yes. Great way to.
I will end there.
And if for the win-win, putting that unity back in the community. Love it, man. Love it.
All right, David. We're looking forward to the next time.
Yes, let's do it again. Peace and love to you
and
guys.
getting some bonfires going around here.
That's right. Yeah, we'll set the intention. Hopefully in the next month or two, or whenever we do it, we do it. It's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be amazing. So whenever you're next in town, Derek, we'll see you.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be painting next time either. So that was cool.
Oh, and it was snowing too, man. That was intense.
Snowstorm.
Yeah.
You almost had to stay stuck with us.
Yeah, I'll sleep on the floor next time or something.
All right, take it easy.
All right, guys. All right, we'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.
Much love, everyone. Thanks so much. So what's going on?
It's madness in the streets, but we're
Snowmageddon again.
with some solutions.
Right? Oh, yeah.
You can't even push. Dude, I forgot much. It's like kind of viral audio, which was, I don't know, he must have been 50, 60 years old, and he's like, this question's always been haunting me, is why do we have to pay money to live on a planet that I was born on? And you're like,
Hey, the dog doesn't pay anything, right? The hell?
the dog, the birds. So it's like, okay, so who are we paying money to? The guys who own the land. How did they get the land? Well, the government stole it from the natives. You see? So there's a whole new world that's coming. Like,
All right, I might as well film a little progress. What have we got working on, Chris?
We got
I heard it was also terracotta.
Terracotta.
Precision. Ooh, loving it. Good job, brother.
Here, but when you get
Yes.
a class right, but you'll be fine. And you
Who's
could, you could go via Eureka up to Buenaventura, and then up Placer.
Oh,
And then you're
okay.
on main roads the whole time.
Okay, that's probably good where there's like traffic.
Yeah, traction and
Yeah.
traffic.
Cars are keeping they keep the road warm.
Yes.
The
Yes.
traction.
Totally,
So-
yeah.
Should I wear my beanie or not?
That was probably, you got some glorious hair, man.
Yeah,
I like
show your
that
hair,
shit.
They
man.
only
Let
We
the
keep
hair
thinking
fly.
You're like a young Thor or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Why? Again, it's
What's cracking? Are you looking for that natural law? How's it going, Leslie?
Hi, Derek.
I heard Brandon told me that you got that natural law.
I got that natural law. Part of the Natty Law group.
Word.
All the elders and the youth, it's time to expose the lies and uplift the truth. Come on, know the state of the